The most effective way to climb the fastest in League of Legends is by one-tricking a champion. If you're always swapping between different champions, then it's going to be really hard to play matchups optimally, so you're constantly missing out on windows of opportunity. Not only will one-tricking a champion improve your ability to win the early game more consistently, but it will drastically improve your macro play too. If you're always thinking about your mechanics and how you should be comboing your abilities in skirmishes, then it takes away from being able to focus on the map and improving as a League player in general. One-tricking won't just make you better at that specific champion, but it will allow you to hone in on the fundamentals of League that will then transfer over to any champion you decide to play in the future. So in today's video, we're going to be covering 3 champions for every single role who we think are the most worth it to one-trick for Season 16. You will notice that a lot of the champions featured have higher skill ceilings, meaning that they are more difficult to master, but extremely rewarding once you have a ton of games on them. It makes a lot of sense to one-trick these kinds of champions because by doing so, you're going to be able to reach their high ceilings way faster. But first, a statement from SkillCapped. Over the past few weeks, we've become aware of a serious situation affecting members of our community. We've seen your comments, we've heard your concerns, and today we feel we owe you an explanation, as the reports are true. Our subscribers are climbing too fast, and we can no longer deny it. Gold, Platinum, and Emerald players reaching Diamond in record time. Diamond players finally breaking into Masters and above. And after careful consideration, we've decided to do nothing about it. Because every single day, countless SkillCapped members are hitting ranks they never thought possible. And it all starts with our Season 16 essentials for every role. Every course is designed to walk you through every stage of the game from start to finish. From learning the exact trading and recall timers you need to win in lane, to the mid-game macro mistakes 99% of players make, all the way to the team fighting tips and tricks challengers abuse to always deal the highest damage possible, and that's only the start. Take our brand new Season 16 macro and wave control courses with perfect 5-star reviews that one customer even said made his entire yearly subscription completely worthwhile. Weekly challenger commentaries where our experts walk you through exactly how to carry in your elo on your chosen champion, or even our world record jungle clears for every meta champion with the exact routes, tips, and tricks our subscribers are abusing to clear faster than ever before. And we're so confident it works, we back it all up with our rank up guarantee. Climb at least 5 divisions or get every penny back. Check it all out today using your exclusive discount in the description or pinned comment below. So starting off in the top lane, one of the best one-trick champions in the role is Mbessa. Mbessa generally has a lower overall win rate for solo queue because she's not the easiest to pick up and succeed with. What Mbessa does have though is one of the highest one-trick win rates for any champ in the game. Players who spend a ton of time on Mbessa get disproportionately rewarded relative to most other top laners, as her kit, if played to its limits, is absolutely incredible for solo queue. It's the consistent skirmish strength of Mbessa and her ability to be constantly dipping and diving around in fights that gives her such a high ceiling and a mass amount of outplay potential. After every ability usage, you're able to dash, so this gives Mbessa quite a high skill ceiling since it's really hard to optimally dash in the correct direction every single time. The long-range catch potential from Mbessa R allows for a lot of skill expression in skirmishes as well, because being able to land it on an enemy fed carry all but guarantees you'll burst them out, but it's a lot easier said than done. 1v5 potential is off the charts with Mbessa if everything is done correctly, but there's a reason her overall win rate sits under 50%, because it's not easy at all unless you spend the time to one-trick her. For our second top lane one-trick selection, we've got another strong skirmisher with a high skill ceiling, being Irelia. Similar to Mbessa, Irelia has crazy good outplay potential due to the mobility she possesses with her Q. The sky is the limit when it comes to Aurelia's ceiling while skirmishing around minion waves, because you have so many different ways in which you can approach the fight. Dashing around in the wave and constantly resetting Q while you dodge the enemy's skill shots and heal up off the wave allows for Aurelia to outplay 1v2 scenarios when she gets ganked in the side lane extremely well. Team fighting takes an even greater level of skill with Aurelia because of her reliance on hitting her E to be most effective. Landing Aurelia's stun consistently is a game changer, but it's not an easy task. You really just need a ton of reps on Aurelia and a solid understanding of your matchups, and then everything will begin to come together. You are bound to int a bunch when you first pick up the champ, and that's completely fine, as you need to limit test and be able to push through those initial pain points in order to get the most out of her. If you get to the point where you can constantly generate leads for yourself in lane and snowball on a regular basis, then Aurelia is one of the most devastating champs in the game, so it makes her very rewarding to one-trick. And then for our third and final one-trick recommendation for top lane, we've got Yone. Yone is very similar to Mbessa in the sense that his overall win rate is never very high for solo queue, but his one-trick win rate is always one of the best. This just means that for the average player who picks up Yone and doesn't take the time to really learn him, he's not super worth it to play, but if you dedicate the time to spam spam games on him and learn the ins and outs, he's a no-brainer champ to choose for your one-trick. What makes Yone so good to one-trick, especially as a top laner, is the fact that he's got one of the most broken kits in the game if given a lead. It's even more insane than Aurelia or Mbessa because you don't even need to land your R with Yone in order to reach your target. You can just use it as a gap close, so when you gain a lead, reaching your target and killing them over and over again is easier to do than on most champs. When you're playing top lane Yone, you have a much longer lane to work with than mid lane, so this really allows you to express your skill through freezing the wave on your side of the lane, and then using that freeze to either generate a massive CS advantage or punish the enemy for walking up and grab a bunch of free kills. If you have your ult available with Yone and you've got a lead, the enemy cannot even walk within 2 screens of you, or else you're going to have them dead to rights. So this makes one-tricking him well worth it, as being able to generate those early leads and knowing your limits in each top lane matchup is key to reaching the champion's potential. So kicking off our top 3 for jungle is going to be the best AP jungler that you can one-trick for solo queue, being Nidalee. Nidalee is your definition of a high-risk, high-reward champion, so by one-tricking her and really learning her limits, you reduce that risk and increase the reward, which then makes her super powerful. With Nidalee, it all comes down to putting yourself in positions to where you are most likely to land your spear, and then actually being able to hit the spear on a consistent basis. Her entire identity revolves around hitting a relatively skinny skill shot, so there's no middle ground with the champ. You're either going to hard carry or be completely useless. Nidalee also falls off super hard as you reach the later stages of the game, and it's more difficult to play into tankier comps, so there's so much working against you, which makes things feel that much sweeter when you master the pick. With that being said, Nidalee's early game is one of the best, as she has the ability to completely steamroll the enemy jungler with a slight advantage. Invading with Nidalee is way more rewarding and easier to do than on most junglers because you have the gap close from W in Cougar form, which you can use to escape over walls. Nidalee's passive helps a ton with tempo and invading too, as you gain movement speed when you walk through brush, so getting from point A to point B is a lot easier on Nidalee than most junglers, which significantly amps her snowball potential. For our second jungle selection, it's a champ who has one of the best extended skirmishes if played to her limits, being Bel'Veth. Bel'Veth is such a unique champion because she has 4 dashes built into one ability. Her Q offers up so much outplay potential and allows for you to close the gap and catch out targets from such a long distance. This has been a common theme with many of the champs in this video so far, in that they all have the ability to close the gap between them and their target very quickly. Because of all the consistent damage, strong mobility, and damage reduction built into her kit, the 1v5 potential is legit if you can play Bel'Veth to her limits, which is exactly what you want out of a champ you're going to one-trick. Definitely not as high risk as Nidalee, but more so than most junglers because a Bel'Veth who does not at least stay even in the game is going to be a lot less useful than most due to lacking a reliable, hard CC ability, and the majority of her worth comes from pumping out damage. If you dive deeper into the analytics of League, what you'll notice when looking at Bel'Veth is that she always has a really high win rate in Diamond and above, but is much lower down in the lower ranks. This is a clear indication that Bel'Veth, when played to her limits and in the hands of good players, is a super strong champ, so spend the time on her and you won't be disappointed. If you're looking to pick Bel'Veth up, then our live commentaries are one of the best ways for you to quickly learn the champ, as our challenger jungler Skillshot is a Bel'Veth main, and he's got a ton of full game commentaries up on our site where he walks you through exactly how to carry on the champ. And then for our third jungle recommendation, this champ is stupidly broken when in the hands of a one-trick, as we've got Talon. So Talon Jungle is a champ who defies a lot of the fundamentals of League. Most junglers can only be super aggro and look to invade if their laners have priority, but with Talon's ability to jump over walls, he gets to largely ignore what his teammates are doing and simply play for himself, which makes him a devastating pick when mastered. If you acquire an early lead with Talon, it's easier to snowball off of that lead compared to most junglers, because you can start perma invading and there's nothing the enemy team can do to stop you. A fed Talon can completely take the opposing jungler out of the game, so learning the limits of the pick and one-tricking him to reach his potential the fastest is well worth it. Not only are Talon's invade plays extremely potent, but his ganks are top tier as well, due to the fact he can use E to hop over walls and avoid common warding spots. For instance, instead of walking through the river and being spotted by the pixel brush ward in either top or bot, you can hop over the dragon or baron walls and then make your way into the tri-brush to flank from behind. It's not all sunshine and roses with Talon though. His main weakness is the fact that he offers up no hard CC and is entirely reliant on dealing damage to be effective, so if you fall behind, then you're way less useful than most junglers. This is why you one-trick him though, because the more you spam games, the less frequently you'll fall behind, and the more often you'll be able to dominate. A mid laner we really like right now who's up in the OP tier on our tier list, and the best mage that you can one-trick is Syndra. Syndra may not have the highest skill ceiling relative to other champs in this video, but she still requires a pretty high level of mastery in order to get the most out of her. Being a skill shot reliant mage, you can't just roll your face over your keyboard with Syndra. Sure, you can have a decent amount of success in Syndra just by simply throwing down Q and then pressing R in fights, but you've gotta be sound mechanically in order to get the most out of her. Hitting constant stuns with Syndra in skirmishes is extremely rewarding, so min-maxing the ability and knowing the exact range in which your stun will land based on where your Q is positioned on the ground takes time to get really good at. Syndra is a mage who has a lot of agency due to her long-range catch from E, so this makes one-tricking her and taking her to her limits extremely rewarding. Being able to single out a target in a fight from long range and then 100-0 them will solo win you games, but it's easier said than done. Early laning with Syndra is an art as well because of her ability to poke with Q. Being able to land Q consistently in lane, especially after it got buffed, can be extremely rewarding, as generating a health advantage and then getting lane priority is key to winning in solo queue. Not only does landing Q provide poke damage, but it then leads into being able to collect splinters for Syndra's passive stacks, so Q mastery is really important to play an elite Syndra. For our second one-trick recommendation for mid lane, it's going to be a bit of a spicy one, as we've got Riven. So right now, we believe that Riven as a mid laner is actually better for you to one-trick than as a top laner. Of course, there's the mechanical side of Riven that makes her well worth it to spend time on and master regardless of what role you play her in, but when playing Riven mid, you can actually get a lot more out of the champion. With top lane Riven, your windows of opportunity aren't going to be as frequent because you'll run into tank matchups and bruisers that will stack armor and make it impossible for you to burst them out. In mid lane though, you'll be going up against squishy assassins and mages, so it makes outplaying them mechanically way more rewarding. If you dodge a key spell from a mage with your E and Q forward onto them, you're going to be rewarded so much more than if you use E to dodge a Scion Q and then jump on him just for him to use his W shield and absorb most of your damage. One-tricking Riven mid gives you a massive advantage as well once you master her, because your opponent will have likely never played against a Riven mid at all. This alone gives you a gargantuan edge up in nearly every single matchup because you will know the limits of your champ, but the opponent won't have a clue. And for our third one-trick recommendation for mid lane, we round the roll out with Vex. League of Legends is a game where we see so many dashes nowadays, and Vex is so valuable to counter this. If you get really good at being able to exploit Vex's favorable matchups, then you're going to find a ton of success in the champ by one-tricking her. After all, the average Vex player is able to win upwards of 53% of the time into Sylas, Yasuo, LeBlanc, and Yone, so just imagine what you can achieve if you actually one-trick her. And the thing is, these kind of champs just never seem to completely disappear from the meta in solo queue, so Vex is always a great champ to one-trick. Vex has a lot of swing factors in her kit as well, which makes her super rewarding to one-trick, and what we mean by this is her R gives her a ton of say as to how fights play out. You get the reset on R whenever you score a takedown, so jumping from one target to the next and killing everyone on the enemy team by yourself is something you can do if you're fed on Vex, while very few other champions have the ability to impact fights at this scale. Heading down to the bot lane now, our first one-trick ADC selection is Tristana. So Tristana is a phenomenal ADC to one-trick because of the fact she has the ability to make plays happen on her own a lot better than the majority of ADCs. You have the long-range gap close from W, so this opens up for so many more windows of opportunity throughout the game. By one-tricking Tristana, you will be able to spot those windows a lot more frequently and solo carry games way harder, as Trist is an ADC who can snowball off of one kill in lane a lot better than most. Trist doesn't really have a weak stage of the game either. Early game kill threat is there, and she scales insanely well later on, so if you're really good at Tristana, there are ways in which you can carry in nearly every single game. Mechanically speaking, Trist doesn't have a massive skill ceiling, but understanding how to use W most effectively is the one thing that really separates an average from a mastered Trist player. This is where understanding how much damage you can deal on certain item spikes and against certain champions becomes key for Trist. On a lot of other ADCs, you don't have the ability to burst super hard, but Trist with her E and R can almost play like an assassin in certain instances, so understanding her limits is way more valuable than on most other ADCs. So one-tricking Tristana is something we'd highly recommend, as she has that takeover potential in her kit that you just don't see in the majority of ADCs. So for our second one-trick ADC, who has been the no-brainer ADC to one-trick for all of Season 16 so far, is Jinx. Jinx just doesn't fall out of meta. She's been good for such a long time, so that's a legit factor in deciding whether or not you'd want to one-trick a champion. If a champ is constantly being nerfed or is given the pro play tax to where they can never become strong for solo queue, then there's way less incentive to play them, but that's not the case with Jinx. When it comes down to being able to solo carry a mid to late game team fight, there are a few champs who have more potential than Jinx. She may not have as much early game agency as a Tristana, but the pop-off capabilities in later game fights is second to none. So this is the main draw to one-tricking Jinx, in that if you farm well and can reach 3 items, then you're going to be of massive impact in team fights if you can pilot the champ well. From a mechanical standpoint, Jinx is pretty straightforward other than her weapon swapping. Even more experienced Jinx players struggle to swap weapons at the correct times in skirmishes, so min-maxing your Q on Jinx is really key to getting the most out of her. A simple rule of thumb to follow is that you should always be in rocket form when you enter a fight, but if you get dove on and the enemy becomes within melee range of you, then swap to minigun form. And then to round round out the 3 one-trick picks for ADC, we've got Zeri. So Zeri has a higher skill ceiling than the majority of ADCs, which makes her amazing to one-trick. The constant Q usage in fights while dipping and diving around with all the movement speed you can get from her R provides a ton of carry power if executed properly. Spacing in fights becomes extremely important on Zeri and a lot more difficult to get used to relative to other ADCs because of all the movement speed you can ramp up to. Your clicks need to be on point with Zeri in order to succeed with her, so she's a lot more mechanically demanding, which makes her great to one-trick. Similar to Jinx and Trist, Zeri is almost never banned out or OP enough to where she's getting nerfed, so a great champ to allocate time towards, and it's quite unlikely you'll be punished for it. A quick tip for Zeri in regards to her build right now is to take Gluttonous Greaves for boots instead of Berserker's Greaves, and then go Phantom Dancer as your second item instead of Fiend Hunter bolts. By doing this, you still have a good amount of attack speed, but you also get the sustain from Gluttonous Greaves. It's 5% less attack speed for all of that Omnivamp, which is a great trade-off. One support that every support main should spend the time to one-trick at some point in their league journey is Thresh. Right now, Thresh is one of the best supports in meta, so it makes it even more worthwhile to one-trick him, but even when he's not an S-tier pick, if you're an experienced Thresh, then you can make him work no matter what because of how much value his kit provides if used optimally. Thresh is a champ you really want to one-trick to get the most out of because of all the different ways in which you can play fights with him. It's not as simple as an enchanter like Janna or Soraka, where you're sitting in the back line and just look to peel in every fight. Thresh has the ability to peel super well, but he can also flip the switch and be the engage for his team, so this requires a whole other level of game knowledge and quick recognition as to what the best play is going to be for each specific scenario. A common mistake that many new or inexperienced Thresh players will make is that they will be so tunneled on hooking the enemy carry in every fight. If you have an ADC who is extremely fed and the only way that you're going to lose the game is if they die, then you should be in peel mode. Being able to recognize when to flip from peel mode to engage mode is key to maximizing Thresh, and many inexperienced players struggle with this. Once mastered though, these options that Thresh has allows him to be way more consistently impactful than other supports. If you really want to play a support who never gets nerfed and always stays strong no matter what, then look no further than Taric. Taric just never gets the attention he deserves as his play rate is always super low, but he's always a top 5 win rate support. There's a lot of skill expression that goes into playing a mastered Taric, so all these factors makes him perfect to one-trick. The skirmish strength of Taric is absolutely incredible because of the constant healing coming out of his Q. Going up against other melee supports is where Taric is really going to thrive because he'll be able to auto-attack more frequently to keep spamming out his Q. The level 6 all-in power of Taric is absolutely nuts, and using his R at the correct time is something that has a near infinite skill ceiling. You can never really use Taric R at the perfect time in every situation, but getting to the point where you're using it so that it provides value during a skirmish is what you want. A lot of newer Taric players will pop R too early, and then the enemy team just runs away, or they will pop it too late when their team is already dead. So finding that middle ground is not easy, but really important to maximizing Taric's potential. The best part about deciding to one-trick Taric is that the enemy bot you're going up against will be very inexperienced in playing against Taric due to his low pick rate. This will give you a huge edge up in every matchup because you'll know how the 2v2 will play out, but the enemy most likely won't, giving you more windows of opportunity. And then our third one-trick recommendation for support has a ton of carry power once mastered, being Poppy. The Poppy pick is so valuable if you can play it well for a few different reasons. The first being that Poppy W provides so much value in the majority of games due to all the dashes in League. Being able to completely shut down divers with your W is such a luxury and gives Poppy a ton of value. There's also the sneaky good all-in power Poppy that players will underestimate, and if you can find that one E into a wall during lane, it can single-handedly win you the lane. Poppy E followed by her Q, passive, and Hail of Blades autos deals so much upfront damage, and your ADC doesn't even need to follow up for you to win the trade a lot of the time. This combo is super deadly because after it lands, you then get to run away with the movement speed from W, which makes it really hard for the enemy bot to fight back. Diving with Poppy is super powerful as well, so this makes roaming with her extremely potent. Being able to find those good roam timers and making a dive play up top lane when your top laner has the enemy shoved under tower can be super game winning. Of course, all this is easier said than done though, as you need a bunch of games on Poppy to be able to recognize these opportunities and then limit tests to know how much you can push things. But while lists like these show you what to play, our brand new Season 16 Essentials courses for every role teach you how to win, each designed to walk you through every stage of the game from start to finish. From the exact trading and recall timers you need to win lane, to the mid-game macro decisions 99% of players get completely wrong, all the way to the team fighting tips and tricks challengers abuse to always deal the highest damage possible. Whether you're a top laner in the most unfavorable matchup possible, a mid laner having to deal with everybody in your lane 24/7, a jungler trying to balance ganking with farming, an ADC stuck trying to hard carry with a support who just exists to grief you, or a support that's struggling to carry games on your own. Our Essentials courses are tailor-made to focus on the exact concepts that actually matter for climbing on your role in your elo. Check them out today, completely risk-free, using the link in the pinned comment or description below. As if you don't climb at least 5 divisions, champions, you get every penny back. So there you have it, everyone. Those are 3 of the best champions to one trick for every role in Season 16. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.